Sitting Ducks, a show that not only manages to tackle a series of extremely important issues about life, but also is one of the most underrated shows out there to date. For anyone who hasn't seen the show, or likely has forgotten about it due to its extreme amount of obscurity, Sitting Ducks is a CGI-based show, based on a painting, and then later a book by the same name, that involves a duck by the name of Bill and an alligator by the name of Aldo, who goes through various hardships and the like due to their friendship. The reason for this stigma is that the show surrounds both species in the show Ducks and Gators. For the ducks in Ducktown, a separate town created solely for the duck residents, it's the fact that the gators in Swampwood would routinely poach them and eat them or use them for clothing during the winter. For the gators at Swampwood, the ducks are solely looked upon as being the inferior species with little worth other than just for food and clothing. It's a relatively simple show, but at the same time conveys a message that most kids nowadays wouldn't even be able to learn without things being considered problematic. Now, as for me, the show was something that I personally grew up with during my childhood, and even today I still tend to watch it online when I get the time. Not only that, but watching these episodes nowadays in 2019, I honestly can't help but see everything that's happening within the show itself reflect greatly on the state of our country nowadays. It's honestly extremely sad that a show like that was meant to portray what life was back in the early 60s, with various groups, is still able to be relevant today, only flipped on its head a bit. To an extent, that is. Of course, that's not the main reason why I'm here to talk about this. At least, not now. The show only lasted for 2 seasons with a total of 26 episodes in total, before it was cancelled back in 2003 due to low views, which again is a very unfortunate turn of events, and even looking back at it now, I can't help but miss it even more. Of course, all good things must come to an end, as cliché as that sounds, it's still true. Now, one of the things about the show that I found to be the best about it was the realistic reactions and depictions of the characters in the show, and the message that it subtly portrayed in each episode. One of the main messages in the show, regardless of whatever episode it is, would always be shown, regardless of whether or not it's even mentioned, is that you should live by the golden rule. Treat others the way you would want to be treated, as well as don't judge a book by its cover. Which, while it may seem like common sense for most people, you'd actually be quite surprised how little this message is even remotely valued anymore. And one of these episodes, which I honestly found to be one of the best of the episodes in the show, strongly portrayed that message beautifully. And the episode was entitled Duck Lover. Honestly, I don't know how much praise and love I can actually give this episode, but it's not enough, at least not to me. This episode basically involves some of the gators at Swampwood finding out that Aldo was friends with a duck, or in this case, many of the ducks. This in turn causes a story, or in this case a rumor, to spread around throughout Aldo's workplace, which gets him into various trouble and even being slandered as a duck lover, with of course the phrase itself being spray painted onto his locker. With of course that embarrassment, Aldo attempts to try and prove to the other gators that he isn't a duck lover by trying to show his aggressive side to the other ducks, which don't end well for him. Because not only are the gators not taking him seriously anymore, but now the ducks at Ducktown are also looking at Aldo like he's a walking circus to them. Thankfully though, after a confrontation with the other gators, after Bill attempts to stop them from treating his friend like garbage, Aldo stands up to the gators, as well as the ducks, by giving a speech telling them that there was nothing wrong with a gator and a duck being friends, but also that they had to respect him as well, including the ducks because he was also a predator as well. This seems to work, and in the end, the gators leave Aldo alone, albeit begrudgingly, and the ducks also have a newfound respect for Aldo as well. Such a simple episode, yet with a powerful message at the end. It's honestly one of my favorites for that reason alone. However, there originally was going to be a part 2 to this episode that was going to be aired after what was to be the final episode of Sitting Ducks, Outback Quack. Now, compared to the episodes above that I described, this episode was primarily going to be focusing more on Bill's issues and troubles that he had going through for having Aldo as a friend as well. The name for this episode was originally going to be named Gator Lover. However, due to the cancellation of the show, while the animation and the like was completed in its entirety as an episode, it had never been released. Now, how do I know this, you all might be asking? Well, it's extremely tricky to say the least, as it was a very long time since I was able to find the information about this episode. Granted, this was back in 2006, and I was rather young at the time, although, despite my young age, I was able to retain a good portion of the description of the episode. As for the website that I had visited, I don't really know if it's active or not. If anything, I'm kind of doubtful that it's still even around, especially with it being 2019. Although, if you actually look at the Wayback Machine, you possibly could find it, though it might take a lot of digging. As for the episode, finding that was difficult, especially when I first started looking into it back in 2006. I think it took me nearly 4.5 weeks of my life to try and find the episode, but after a lot of digging and asking questions around in various forums, I was able to snag a ripped copy of the episode from a torrent site. Yeah, my parents' computer that I was using at the time got a few nasty viruses, which I got a stern lecture from my mother after she had wound up finding out about it. Thankfully, though, the episode itself hadn't been corrupted or messed up in any way, and I was able to watch the episode at least 6 or 7 times before the old laptop was immediately switched out for a more modern-looking PC and placed somewhere in a storage unit about a few miles away from my house. Where specifically it is, I don't know, and my parents don't have a clue really where it's at either. But even then, I still am glad that I managed to retain the information that I did. The episode would start off with the intro for Season 2. Once the intro concluded, the title card of the episode is shown with the title Gator Lover animated in the same font as all the others episodes start with the same blue background, as well as Aldo and Bill sitting there and playing the bongos right next to each other. After a few moments of this, the scene then proceeds to fade to black, before finally cutting back in to quickly show the outside view of Bill's apartment window in Ducktown, with the names of the writers, producers, and the like fading in and out on the screen, before finally fading back into Bill's apartment. The entire apartment complex is relatively normal, as shown in every other episode, with the sole exception of the multitude of various boxes stacked onto one another at various parts of the room. It's then that both Aldo and Bill make their way into the scene, into Bill's apartment, each both carrying a box in their hands. Gee, Bill, I'm really flattered that you wanted me to move in with you, but are you sure that this is okay? Aldo asked as he placed the box down on the kitchen table. Of course it is, Bill answered, placing one of the boxes onto the ground. You're my best friend, after all, and honestly, I think it's a great thing that you're wanting to adapt more to Ducktown. Aldo smiles a bit at this and rubs the top of Bill's head. Thanks again, buddy. I really appreciate it. I just really hope that there isn't any issues that come by with me moving with you, Aldo says. Aldo, you don't need to worry about that. Everyone here in Ducktown knows that you wouldn't cause any kind of problems, so there's no reason for anybody to even remotely have an issue with you and me living together, Bill says as he wipes his brow with his wing. I guess you're right there, Bill. Honestly, it feels good to get out of the swamps and into somewhere actually different, Aldo says, closing the door behind him with the last box. You bet it is. And what a better way of doing that than having my best friend be my roommate, Bill answered. The two then immediately began to open up some of the boxes in the apartment, most of which weren't really anything that particularly interesting to look at, just your basic household items like plates, bowls, fine china, and the like. After a minute or two of the two getting everything settled up, Bill spoke up and said, Well, now that we gotten you settled in, how about we go over to Bev's for a nice milkshake? On me, Bill said. How about we split the bill? Aldo began. You helped me out a lot today with getting everything packed up and moved in. It's only fair that I cover my end of the milkshake. Okay, that sounds fair, Belle answered. How about afterwards we run a movie tonight to celebrate? Aldo thought it over for a bit before responding with, Sure, that sounds good. With that, both Aldo and Bill made their way to the door, opened it up, and began making their way into the hallway. As the scene cut to show Aldo and Bill making their way towards the stairs, the scene then panned in to show Ollie, Waddle, and Ed sticking their heads out of the apartment doorway for a few moments before immediately pulling that back in and closing the door shut. The camera then cut to show the inside of the Duck brothers' apartment in all its messy glory before panning over to show Waddle, Ed, and Ollie looking at the doorway with confused looks. Wow, I didn't think that in a million years all the Gators would a Gator would move into Ducktown, Ed said as he made his way over towards the couch. Yeah, I mean, it's just odd. Why would Aldo move out of his place in Swampwood just to come and live here? Ollie said, equally confused. You know, I've heard something about this, Waddle said in his childlike voice. This caught the attention of the two older brothers rather quickly, and without another word being said around them, they both gathered around their younger brother to listen more. What do you mean? What do you mean there, Waddle? Ollie asked, trying to press for more details. The scene then cut back to Waddle, who was now trying to think a bit. Well, from what I read in some of my books, usually when someone moves in with another person, Waddle began, that means they're a couple or something. Both Ollie and Ed's beaks dropped to the floor, literally, at what they were hearing. The two both struggled to say any remote words for a bit before Ollie slapped himself to get himself together. So, what you're telling us is that Aldo and Bill are together? Like, together in a mushy, gushy way? That's what the book says. I mean, that's what I think it says, Waldo answered. Okay, I need to sit down for a bit, Ollie said before slumping himself down on the couch in shock, to which Ed did the same. As they sat down, Waddle immediately made his way over towards the two, looking rather confused to their reactions, looking rather confused to their reactions as to the reactions of what he had told them. Why is this so shocking? Waddle began. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. If Aldo and Bill are happy together, then that's fine. Waddle was immediately interrupted by Ollie jumping off of the couch and facing his brother in a slightly threatening way. Waddle, there's so much wrong with that, Ollie yelled out. Aldo's a gator. Bill's a duck. That's not right. It's not normal. Not to mention that it's an affront to nature, too, Ed responded. Waddle now even looked more confused than before. He was going to say something, but the others immediately beat him to it. We're not going to let this happen, you guys, Ollie said as he made his way over towards the front door and opened it. Where are you going, Bill? Ed called out. Nowhere. I'm going nowhere, Ollie answered, slamming the door shut. The scene then cut to show both Waddle and Ed simply staring at each other in the living room in silence. I don't know what Bill's doing, but I don't know if it's going to be good or not, Ed said. The scene then faded out before cutting back to show both Aldo and Bill sipping on a few smoothies together in Bev's shop. Man, these smoothies are great, Bev, Bill said, taking another sip of his smoothie. Yeah, they really are good today. Is it a new formula or something? Aldo asked. Well, thank you, boys. And, well, to answer that, that's my little secret, Bev said, blinking, before chuckling a bit, to which the other two immediately joined in. As they were laughing, Bill took a look at the clocks hanging on the wall, and then gulped a bit at what time it was showing. He immediately began to nudge Aldo a bit to get his attention, which he did. Hey, Aldo, we need to get going. The video store closes in 15 minutes, Bill said. Oh, Bev said. You two having a movie night together? Bev said rather excitedly. Yeah, it's a bit of a celebration with me moving in with Bill, Aldo answered. Woohoo! Well, before you go, how about some milkshakes for your little date tonight? Bev said, putting a great amount of emphasis on the word date. Bill simply blushed at that statement, and Aldo had to keep himself from laughing. Will do, Aldo said, grabbing the milkshakes from Bev and heading out of the door with Bill's hand in his. The scene then cut back to Bev, who simply waved goodbye to the two and began to take some of the empty milkshake glasses and put them in a large bin for cleaning. However, just as she was about to finish up her work, Oli immediately walked into the door with an upset look on his face. Oh, Oli, Bev began. I wasn't expecting to see you here without your brothers. I needed some air, Ollie answered. Bev immediately noticed Ollie's look and then asked, Hey, Ollie, is something bothering you today? Bev asked. Yeah, something is bothering me, Ollie answered. Well, do you want to talk about it? Bev asked once more. Ollie simply looked around the restaurant for a bit, scanning to see if there was any ducks listening in which the camera did a quick pan-out view as he looked around, and then returning back to normal. Upon seeing that the coast was in a sense clear, he spoke up. Bev, do you know that Aldo moved into Bill's apartment today? Why, yes, I do. They were just here having a smoothie to celebrate the occasion, a new recipe I'm working on. Why do you ask? Bev answered, slightly suspicious at what Ollie's intentions were with asking that question. I think there's something more to Bill and Aldo that they ain't telling us, Ollie said. And that is? Bev said, now completely suspicious at this point. I think Bill and Aldo are, in a, romantic relationship together, Ollie whispered. Bev's expression didn't falter for even a moment at that statement. So, what's the problem again? Bev asked, pouring a cup of coffee for herself. What's the Bev, Aldo is a gator and Bill's a duck. You can't tell me that there isn't anything wrong with that, now do you? Ollie said, now floored. I honestly don't get why you're making this out to be such a big deal, Ollie. While I will admit that I am a little bit surprised, I don't see why I should have a problem with Bill and Aldo being in a relationship, Bev said, now slightly agitated by Ollie's statement. It's not normal, Bev, Ollie shouted, completely aggravated, almost catching a couple of the duck's attentions. Says who? Says you? Bev began. Now, I don't know where you got that information from, and I have my suspicions that it's probably not true. But even if it was true, you really shouldn't be snooping around in Aldo and Bill's private lives like that. But even then, I have to ask, where did you even get that information from anyway? Waddle told me about it Waddle told me that he read it in a book, Ollie answered. Bev, at this point, immediately facepalmed, which I will admit I kinda did as well the first time watching the episode. Ollie simply looked at Bev, who was now apparently trying to contemplate what Ollie had just said. You're kidding me, right? Bev said. Well, no, I'm not. It's still not right, Bev. We gotta stand up and fight against this, Ollie said. Bev, however, was having none of this. She immediately grabbed Ollie by the top of his hat and pulled him in close. Listen to me, Ollie, Bev began. I don't know how or why you're jumping to conclusions like this that quickly. But hear me out and hear me good. Whether or not Bill and Aldo are together or not, it's nobody's business. You sitting there and trying to cause some sort of stir-up in Ducktown isn't going to stand with me. And so help me, Ollie, if you do anything that hurts Bill or Aldo, or both of them, heaven forbid, then you will never step foot in this cafe for the rest of your life. You got that? Ollie, now shaking slightly, stuttered, Yes, ma'am. Good, Bev said, letting go of Ollie's hat. Now, if you aren't going to pay for a milkshake, then I suggest that you please go. I have other customers that I need to deal with. Ollie, without another word, immediately ran out of the diner in fear, to which the scene would then transition over to show Ollie making his way down the street, head down and talking to himself slowly. What if Bev's right? I mean, if Aldo and Bill aren't together, then this whole thing's just not worth getting into, but there's still that chance that it could be true, Ollie said to himself. Hey, buddy! Ollie, senor! A disembodied voice called out. Ollie immediately looked around him, trying to find the source of the voice. That answer was given relatively quickly as the scene cut to show a first-person view of someone flying towards Ollie before crashing into him. Ollie immediately fell to the ground before impatiently looking up towards who had flown into him. Oh, it's you, Raul, Ollie said, as the scene cut to show Raul flying above Ollie. So, my compadre, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, Raul said before helping Ollie up to his feet. What are you doing here, Raul? Ollie asked. Well, I overheard your little conversation that you were having, and I was wondering what I could do to help you find out about your question, Raul asked. Wait, so you want to help me find out if Bill and Aldo were together? Ollie asked. Of course! Besides, it'd be completely hilarious to find out about Mr. No-Fly, Raul answered. Ollie's expression turned into one of deep thought as he contemplated what he wanted to do. As he was doing this, an angel and a devil version of himself popped up onto each side of his shoulders and began the typical argumentation of what that most good conscious, bad conscious, personified tends to do However, in the end, the bad one won out. Alright, Raul, this is what I need you to do, Ollie said, before the scene faded to black for a bit before fading back in to show the exterior of Bill and Aldo's apartment at night for a few moments. The scene then panned into one of the windows, to which it shows Bill and Aldo sitting down on their couch, eating popcorn and watching their movie together. So, Aldo, how's your first day as a citizen of Ducktown? Bill asked before taking another handful of popcorn. I'm loving it, Bill, and I'm really loving how this movie's going out, Aldo answered, pulling his friend closer to him. I'm glad you're happy, Aldo. I'm really glad that you agreed to move in with me. It's really nice having you around, Bill said, blushing slightly. Aldo looked down at his friend and proceeded to give him a big hug in response. I love being with you too, buddy, Aldo said, as Bill giggled a little bit from that hug. It's getting a little bit chilly in here, Bill. How about you grab us a blanket? Aldo said, rubbing his scales. Oh, sure thing, pal, Bill said, hopping off of the couch and going off screen for a bit, before coming back into frame with a large blue blanket in hand. Here you go, Aldo, Bill answered, as he opened up the blanket and held it up towards his friend. Thanks again, Bill, Aldo said before wrapping the blanket around him and his friend. There was a few moments of the two simply watching the movie before Aldo finally decided to say something. Hey, Bill, Aldo said softly. Yeah, Aldo? Bill said, looking up at Aldo. I just want to tell you that I really appreciate everything you do for me. And I love you. I know I don't say it often, but I really do love you, man, Aldo said, stammering a bit at his words. Bill was slightly taken aback by those words, but soon smiled and nuzzled into Aldo a bit before blushing and answering with, I love you too, buddy. So very much, Bill answered. Just as this heartwarming scene had finally concluded, it then cut to show Raul flying up towards the window with the camera around his neck. Upon reaching Aldo and Bill's apartment window, Raul got out the camera and then aimed it at where Bill and Aldo were sitting at together. Gotcha, Raul whispered before taking the picture. The sudden flash of the picture transitioned over towards the new scene of the episode, and once the flash cleared, it showed Oli handing out various pictures of what both Bill and Aldo were doing together to a few of the other residents at Ducktown. There wasn't really any dialogue in this scene, but it was very relatively memorable due to the fact of the shocked expressions that were on the ducks' faces as they looked at the pictures. The scene then transitioned back to show Bill sitting down at his apartment, painting away at his canvas before his stomach slowly started to growl. Huh. Well, it looks like it's time for a nice lunch break. I think I'll go to Bev's today. I wonder what new kind of flavor of milkshake she has today, Bill said as he put away his paint, grabbed his key for the scooter, and then made his way out the door. The scene then cut to show Bill making his way over towards his scooter, only to find that it was completely out of gas. Again. Oh, I thought I filled this tank up yesterday. Oh, well, I can walk there. Besides, I've been needing to get a little bit of extra exercise this week, Bill said to himself. As a young duck made his way over towards Bev's decoy shop, he was met with a lot of glares coming his way from the other ducks, some even going as so far to literally turn their backs on him. This is odd. I guess everyone's having a bad day today, Bill muttered to himself. Just as he was about to turn the corner, one of the cars that was going down the road immediately stopped at where Bill was walking, and a few ducks stuck their head out of the window and yelled out, "Gator lover!" To which, afterwards, one of them took a water balloon and threw it at Bill, soaking him in the process while the car sped off. "Hey, what was that for?" Bill yelled out. He immediately looked around the place for a cop and found Drill Sergeant Duck standing there watching the car go off. "Hey, Drill Sergeant, aren't you going to go after them?" Bill called out. "Normally I would, but for a gator lover like yourself, I'm going to let it off the hook today," the sergeant said before spitting on the ground near Bill's direction and then walking off. "What?" Bill said before the scene cut to show Bill making his way into the decoy cafe. However, just as he walked in, all the ducks, with the exception of Bev, immediately got up from their seats and began walking out of the diner in droves. "Wait, you didn't pay your—" Bev called out, but was soon silenced after the entire diner was completely emptied quickly. "Checks," Bev finished before groaning. What was all that about?" Bill asked, to which the camera cut to show Bev looking at where Bill was standing at. "Oh, hey Bill. Honestly, I don't really know. Everyone's been acting odd all day, and I don't really know why," Bev answered. Bill immediately hopped up into one of the bar stools as Bev started to clear out bowls and plates in front of him. "Sorry about the mess, Bill. I wasn't expecting everyone to leave so soon," Bev answered as she grabbed the plates and other items and put them aside before wiping down the counter. "So, what can I get you today, Bill?" Bev asked him. Just a milkshake, for here," Bill answered. As Bill made the milkshake, the camera then cut to show parts of the diner completely and utterly empty and devoid of life, before immediately coming back to show Bill now drinking his milkshake. "So, how's your day been going?" Bill asked as she put the dishes into a cart and pushed it towards the kitchen door. "Well, I mean, it started off okay, but once I left my apartment, everybody was acting strange about me. In fact, one of the cars even pulled over and hit me with a water balloon. I think one of them even called me a gator lover, too," Bill said. "Did you try and get a police officer's attention?" Bev asked. "Yeah, and she called me a gator lover, too," Bill answered. Bev simply nodded and continued to clear and wipe down the bar. "I'm sorry that happened to you, Bill. Tell you what, I'll let you come down this week for a free milkshake at lunch. My treat. Oh, and before I forget," Bev said before diving down into the bar for a moment, before pulling out a styrofoam cup with a large A written on it. "This milkshake's for Aldo when he gets back from work today. I'm sure he'll really love what I made for him," Bev said. Bill smiled and took the milkshake in his hand. "Thanks for brightening up my day today, Bev. I'll certainly enjoy it, and I know Aldo will as well," Bill said before finishing up with his milkshake. "It's no problem, Bill. Now you have a good day now," Bev said, waving goodbye to Bill as he made his way out of the door. "You too," Bill answered back. The rest of the scene would then cut to show Bill sitting down on the couch, watching the local news on the TV. Just as he was about to call it a night, the camera then cut to show Aldo making his way to the apartment, tired yet happy to see his best friend. "Oh, hey Aldo," Bill said happily. "Hey Bill, I'm surprised that you stayed up this long. Also, sorry for not calling up and telling you that I'd be late tonight. I had to work a couple of extra shifts. It was extremely last minute, and oh boy, the factory is a pain, Aldo said while making his way over towards his best friend. Oh, it's not a problem, Aldo, Bill said, yawning. Besides, with the day that I've had today, I honestly didn't really feel like sleeping yet. At least, not until I made sure you were here. Why? What happened today? Aldo asked, confused and slightly worried. Well, to put it bluntly, a few of the ducks called me a gator lover today. Not to mention a few of them threw a few water balloons at me, too. When I entered Bev's cafe, everyone suddenly just upped and left. It was really baffling today, Bill answered. Oh, Bill, did you get a good look at their faces? Aldo asked, now slightly angry. Just tell me who they are, and I'll deal with them for you. It's fine, Aldo. It was just a few grumpy ducks, and besides, the water balloon was actually pretty nice, given how hot it was later on today, Bill answered. You sure you don't want me to deal with them? Aldo asked. Just say the word, and they won't bother you again. I'm fine, really. It was just a bad day. But hey, Bev made you a milkshake today. It's in the fridge if you want it. Plus, seeing you again really made this day amazing anyway, Bill said softly. Oh, Bill, you big softy, Aldo said, rubbing the top of Bill's head again, ruffling its feathers. The scene then faded once more, to another scene of Bill painting again. Now, for a duration of this episode, everything starts to go slightly downhill in this episode in a pattern. As it goes out, each day, for the next 2 days afterwards in the show, Bill would go to the cafe for lunch, be assaulted by the various amount of ducks as he's making his way there, which increase in severity each day as each day continues, only for the cafe to be filled with less and less customers as he makes his way in there. The third day is when the episode really came to a head. During this scene, Bill isn't even remotely painting anymore, and instead simply slumps onto his couch watching the television. And as expected, Bill's stomach starts to growl once more. However, instead of going to the cafe for his usual lunch that Bev had promised him, he simply made his way over towards the fridge without a word and proceeded to grab a box of salamander snackies and then make his way back over to the couch in a depressed slump. As he does this, Bill opens up the box and sighs before eating the contents of it. As he eats, the camera pans outside of Bill's door and over towards the apartment door of Waddle, Ed, and Ole before cutting to the inside of their home. Waddle was the first one to be shown, as he had a look of boredom plastered on his face. Ed simply sat on the couch watching TV, and Ole kept on shifting through a few photos of you-know-what. As Ole continued to look at the pictures, he snickers a bit, which in turn catches Waddle's attention. The youngest of the brothers then make his way over towards where Ole was at, and then noticed that he had something in his wings. Ole? What do you have, dear? Waddle innocently asked. The sudden question coming from his younger brother caused Ollie to jump and draw up a few of the pictures on the ground, which Waddle picked up and looked at. Ollie? Why do you have pictures of Aldo and Bill snuggling on the couch? Waddle asked, which caught the attention of Ed as well, as he too got off the couch and went to investigate what Waddle had just said. What's all the commotion going on here? Ed said, before stopping himself and picking up another one of the pictures. Ole? Why do you have this? Ed asked his brother. It's no reason, Ole answered, fidgeting a bit. Hang on a minute, Waddle said before turning his brother around and finding almost 100 of the pictures on the table scattered around. Oi, what is this? Waddle asked innocently. It's, wait a minute, Oi. What's that piece of paper doing right there? Waddle asked as he reached over to the table and grabbed a small piece of paper from it. Wait a minute, you don't need to... Ole said before growing quiet as Waddle's shocked expression slowly arose to meet his brother face to face. Ole, why would you do that to them? Waddle said in a very upset voice. Why? What did he do? Ed asked. Only had only had Raoul take pictures of Bill and Aldo. He's giving them to all the ducks in the duck town, Waddle explained. There was a brief moment of silence from the three brothers as the camera panned over to each of their faces. What? Ollie, why would you do that to them? Ed asked, concerned. Why not? Ollie began. The town people need to know about the Gator lover across the hall from us. I can't believe what I'm hearing right now, Waddle said, upset. You not only had pictures of them taken without their permission, but you're trying to ruin their lives as well? Hey, they brought it upon themselves. Like you said, Waddle, they were mates, and we can't have that, Ollie said, attempting to defend himself. I didn't say that was the case, but even if it was, that doesn't mean that you have to do that to someone. And again, what's so wrong about them being a couple? Waddle explained. Everything. Do I seriously need to even get into your fragile skull, Waddle? It's wrong. Case closed, Ollie yelled. Dude, Ed began. I may not agree with it myself, but that doesn't mean you do something like this. I mean, what do you have to gain for doing this to someone? Ollie, now realizing that he was cornered, immediately scoffed and began to walk out the door once more, before saying, It's not like it's doing anything wrong. It's a stupid picture. It'll blow over soon. And then, with that, he left without another word spoken. Where the scene went back to Bill sitting on his couch, the night sky now starting to fall in the background as he sat there. What is today? Bill muttered. As if to answer his question, the phone began to ring loudly. Bill, rather groggily, made his way over towards the phone and answered it. Hello? Oh, it's you, Aldo. How's work going along? You almost ready to come home? Oh, you have to work late again? I see. Oh, well, okay then. Oh, today's been not too great. I can't wait to see you tonight. I'll make sure you get that milkshake when you get home. I'm going over to Bev's now. Thanks again, and I love you too, Otto. I love you too, Aldo. See you later. With that, Bill put the phone down under the base of the dial, and then began to make his way over towards Bev's cafe once more. The scene then cut to show Bill making his way inside of the cafe, with nobody even remotely there except for Bev herself, who looked equally as bummed out as Bill was that day. Hey, Bev, Bill said groggily as he made his way over to the stool. Hi, Bill, Bev answered flatly. Can I get a milkshake, please? Oh, and one for Aldo, too, please, Bill asked. Bev didn't say anything, but instead got to work making the milkshakes, which didn't take too much time, as it was on the counter in a set of styrofoam cups. Bill was a bit confused, as it seemed that he had the full intentions of drinking at the store. However, Bev looked up at Bill and sighed. Well, it seems as though you're not having a really good day, so I'll just get out of your feathers then. Thanks again for the shakes, Bev. I'll make sure to be back by tomorrow, Bill said. About that, Bill, there's something that you and I need to talk about, Bev said, this time more heartbroken than anything. Bill immediately stopped in his tracks, and then glanced at Bev with a confused expression on her face. I've been losing a lot of business recently, and because of this, I had to ask my customers what they needed for me to keep them all in. And they answered rather quickly with, get rid of the alligator lover. I didn't know who they were talking about until they mentioned you. They didn't give me any information, no matter what I'd say. I didn't want to do any of this, but Bill, you need to understand. I can't lose this restaurant. If I do, I lose everything, and I can't. I can't do that now, Bev said, almost on the verge of crying. What What are you saying, Bev? Bill stuttered, nearly on the verge of tears. You and Aldo can't. You and Aldo can't come back to the diner anymore. At least, not until things get sorted out, Bev answered flatly. Bill simply sat there shocked. As the 2D animation of Bill's heart shattering into pieces played out upon hearing those words. Bev, you can't be serious, Bill said as tears began to well up in his eyes. I'm sorry, Bill, but it's the only option I have. But I promise you that regardless of what happens, you'll always be my friend, and you have my full support with you and Aldo. I promise that, Bev said, placing a wing on Bill's hand. I see, Bill said, getting off of the stool and making his way outside. Bill, wait, Bev said. By that time, Bill had already left the cafe. The scene then faded to show Bill slowly making his way back to his apartment, dragging his feet behind him. That is, until, completely out of the blue, a few set of wings grabbed Bill and dragged him down an alleyway without any remote explanation or even a single word. They began to beat Bill off screen. Every one of the ducks that were attacking him, beating him violently and calling him Gator Lover in the process. The camera then cut to show Aldo sitting on the couch, nervous and waiting. That is, until the entrance to the apartment slowly opened up. Bill, where were you? I came home and Aldo stopped talking and gasped at what he was looking at. The camera then cut to show Bill, beaten up badly. His feathers were removed in various spots on his body. Parts of him were covered in milkshake. He had a really nasty black eye that was swollen shut. His bow tie was completely unraveled. Bruises were also all over him as well. Written on him in paint were the words Gator Lover, plastered all over his body. Bill simply stood there and shook like a leaf as he limped over towards the kitchen. Aldo in an instant made his way over towards his friend. Bill, oh my gosh, what happened to you? Aldo said, panicking. Bill didn't answer, but instead placed the ruined styrofoam cups on the counter that once contained the milkshakes, and then slowly turned towards his best friend, and without a word, broke down crying right then and there. He would have collapsed to the floor if Aldo hadn't grabbed him gently. Bill, what's wrong? Who did this to you? Who hurt you? Aldo said, nearly on the verge of a mental breakdown. Bill simply sobbed in his best friend's arms, repeating the words that were used on him over and over again as he had been beaten up. Gator lover, Gator lover, Gator lover, Gator lover, Gator lover. Gator lover. He continued to spew out those words, slowly and silently, as tears continued to flow down his face from both of his eyes, until he was nothing more than a sobbing wreck. Aldo simply held him softly, carefully making sure not to cause the young duck any more pain than he was already in. Then, without another word, Aldo scooped up his friend and said, Don't worry, buddy. We're gonna get you some help. I'll take you to Cecil's as fast as I can, Aldo said aloud, running over to the door. No! Bill yelled out, shaking even harder. No, I don't. They don't. Gator lover. Aldo stopped in his tracks, and then took his friend over towards the bathroom and began running his friend a bath. Okay, Bill. I won't take you there, Bill, buddy, Aldo said, carefully placing Bill into the warm water. You just relax in the tub for a little bit. I'm gonna have Cecil come over and help you fix you up, okay? Bill simply held on to Aldo's hand, shaking it as he did. I'll be back quickly, I promise, Aldo said. Watch me. Aldo then ran off screen, and then back in less than a second with the phone in his hand. He then immediately began to call up Cecil, to which the next scene immediately popped up, showing Cecil tending to the last of Bill's wounds. Upon finishing, he made his way out of blocking Bill's body, only showing Bill's shaking body. His entire left eye was completely patched up. Most of his chest and body were wrapped up in bandages, and his right arm was wrapped in a sling. Aldo then also came into frame and helped his friend under the couch. How bad is it, Doc? Aldo asked, as softly as he could say it. Well, Bill's arm is fractured, but thankfully not broken. His left eye is swollen shut, which should last for a few days. The open wounds and cuts in his body from where the feathers were torn out have been bandaged up, but it will take a good time for them to grow back. Other than that, he's lucky that he didn't sustain any permanent damage, Cecil said. However, his mental state at the moment is very sensitive, to say the least. You're going to need to help him in any way possible for a few days, until his mind starts to clear up better, Cecil said. Anything to help my friend. I'll make sure to call up work and tell them I won't be in for a few days, Aldo said. Good. Now, Aldo, I need to talk to you about something, and I apologize greatly if this is a personal issue. But I think I might open up a few extra doors at the moment on the motive of the ducks that attacked your friend, Cecil said once more before rummaging around in his medical bag. Sure, ask away, Aldo answered. My first question to you, Aldo, is this. Are you and Bill in a relationship together? Cecil asked. No, we aren't. Why do you ask? Aldo answered. Cecil immediately made his way out of this case with a few photos in his hands. Because some ducks gave me these pictures a few days back, Cecil said, pointing out the image that was on them. What the? How did that get on a picture? Aldo said, shocked. And that's another thing as well. And before I continue, I'm going to need you to sit down and brace yourself for this one, Cecil asked once more, to which Aldo obeyed. Cecil immediately grabbed a little bit of water that was provided to him from Aldo and took a sip. Okay. From a few ducks that handed me the picture, I asked them about the origins of it, and how they had procured it. From what I was told, apparently those photos were being distributed by a lone duck that I believe you know quite well. Who? Aldo said. A duck by the name of Oli was the one who was giving the pictures away, Cecil said. It was then that the camera panned into Aldo's eyes, as they went from scared to infuriated in less than a few seconds. It was honestly a very disturbing image. Had no good backstabbing, Aldo growled as he bared his teeth in rage. I swear when I find him, I'm gonna rip his wings off of his body. Aldo, look, I know you're infuriated right now, but going after Ollie isn't going to help you or Bill's situation. Right now, the best thing you can do is help your friend. And then you can move forward after that. Not only that, but I'll also personally make sure to stop by every day to check on you and Bill's well-being. Just promise me you won't do anything drastic, please. Aldo simply stared down at Cecil and then looked over at Bill, and then let out a long sigh. Okay, I promise. But only for Bill, Aldo said as he contained himself. Good, now, I must be going off now. Make sure that if Bill is in any kind of pain, that he takes these painkillers, Cecil said as he handed Aldo a bottle. I will. Thank you for everything, Aldo said. With that done, Cecil immediately left the home, leaving Bill and Aldo alone. Aldo then made his way over towards Bill, who was still shaking. You don't need to worry, buddy. I'll be here for you, and I mean it. Whatever you need, whatever you want, you just ask me, and I'll get it for you, I'll do it for you. Anything," Aldo said as he carefully picked up Bill and lied down on the couch with Bill lying on top of him. "Are you okay sleeping here? Or do you want to go to your bed?" Aldo asked. Bill simply responded by nuzzling himself into Aldo's arm and falling asleep nearly instantaneously. Aldo smiled a bit and wrapped the covers around him and his friend. "You're gonna be okay, Bill. I promise," Aldo whispered before falling asleep with the duck in his arms. The scene then faded in before coming right back to show Waddle, Ole, and Ed in their apartment, looking extremely guilty. The only thing that was then shown was the sound of a door slamming shut. Why, Ole? Why?" Ed said before going back to his stance. "Why should I care about what happened? Ole said before Waddle stormed up to him and yelled, "He's our friend, Ole. So what if he and Aldo were together? Why does it matter? Oh wait, it does, to you. Now look what you've done. Bill got beaten up. He's hurt because of you. And yet, you still don't care," Waddle growled. "But," Ole said, to which Waddle simply slapped him across the face. "No, just shut up," Waddle said before making his way into the bedroom, to which Ed followed him immediately. Ole was now left alone in the living room, and it stayed that way until the scene cut to show Aldo and Bill the very next day making their way into town with Bill on top of his friend's back, covered, and just to make sure of it that he couldn't be seen. However, this disguise apparently didn't do much, because as they were walking down the street, a few of the ducks began to yell out various calls and the like to Bill and Aldo, which Aldo counteracted by scaring the ever-living hell out of them in the process. "We won't be long, Bill. I just need to get to the grocery store to get a few things for the house. Just keep wearing those earmuffs and stick by me," Aldo whispered to the young duck, to which he nodded in agreement. Just as they were about to make their way down to Bev's cafe, a group of ducks immediately began to swarm the two in a rather unexpected motion. It was then, for the second time, that things in the episode were starting to get violent again. Various ducks of various shapes and sizes were now starting to form around the two, and even a few people from Bev's shop started throwing milkshakes at them in the process. This didn't last long before Aldo, in the most badass way possible, let out one of the loudest roars he could muster, which in turn silenced everyone in Ducktown that was there, which was pretty much everyone. "Alright, everyone. I've had it just about enough with all this insanity. Look at yourselves, all of you. What are you even doing with your lives right now, other than tormenting a poor duck and his friend because of a stupid picture? How disgusting and cold are you people?" Aldo snapped. "Oh, shut your mouth, Gator," one bystander yelled out. "I'll shut my mouth when I feel like it," Aldo yelled. "You all seem to forget about what I said to all of you weeks back. That I'm a predator, and I eat ducks like you. And honestly, given how much pain you will put my best friend and soulmate through, both physically and mentally, I'm tempted right now to dine on a few of you right now. But I know that if I do that, I'll hate the taste, because how can I stand to eat something so rotten and putrid inside? And just so you know, that picture that you all were shown by Ole, that was just me and my best friend, and the whole wide world having a nice night together. And even if Bill was a gator lover, what's so wrong about that? So what if he loves a gator? So what if he loves me? You know, maybe he does. So, you know, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Either way, it's fine. Now here's what you're all gonna do. You're going to forget about that picture, you're gonna leave my Bill alone, or so help me, it will be your last day on Earth, I promise," Aldo growled. It was then that Bev wound up exiting the shop, And Aldo as well turned to her in an angry expression. And you, Bev. The fact that you not only banned me but Bill from your cafe just because you couldn't seem to do the right thing and stand up for your friends is disgusting. Honestly, after hearing what Bill wound up hearing from you that night, he was beaten down. You're gonna need to do a lot, and I mean a lot, to make it up to him. But not just him, to me as well. You hear me? Aldo snapped. I I do, Bev said. Now, get out of our way, or else I'm gonna make every one of you. Aldo snapped once more, which caused the entire crowd to disperse rather quickly. Thank you, Aldo, Bill whimpered. Hey, what kind of friend would I be if I didn't help my friend out? A bad one, Aldo answered. After that insane climax sequence, the camera then transitioned over to the final scene of the episode, which involved Oli slowly making his way over towards Bill and Aldo's apartment, and softly knocking on the front door. Aldo was the one who answered it, and with a fierce growl, forced the duck into the room. The scene then cut to the inside of the living room. Ollie then met the gaze of Bill, who was sitting cross-armed, still bandaged up and bruised, and his arm in a sling, but overall looking a lot better than what he had before. I see you got my message, Bill said softly. Yeah, I did. Look, I'm sorry, I don't... Oli was immediately interrupted by Bill holding up his wing and saying, I know you're sorry, but I'm afraid that isn't going to make up for what happened, Oli. You nearly ruined my life. You nearly ruined my friend's life. I was beaten to the point where I thought I was going to die. And lastly, Aldo had to take off work because of you, Bill said softly. However, despite that, all of that, despite everything you put me and him through, I was nice enough to not let Aldo sit there and eat you alive, or have you shamed publicly for what you did, not like what you did to me, Oli, because unlike you, I'm not a monster. I have compassion for other ducks. And funny thing, as of now, well, I will admit you did something good for once. Even after all this, there was still something more you gave us. Aldo then stepped forward and placed a ring, his arm around Bill. Because of what we went through, we both saw that there was much more to our friendship than what either of us knew. So I guess you were right. I am a Gator lover, and I'm okay with that. Now, if you don't mind, get out and don't ever come back near me again, or there will be problems. As for your brothers, I'm going to be talking with them later as well. But for you, I don't want to even remotely look at your ugly face. With that, Oli immediately lowered his head and slowly made his way out of the door. To which, Aldo immediately slammed it shut, made his way over to Bill, and gave him a big hug. I know that was difficult for you to do, Bill, Aldo said, but I'm proud of you. You're honestly about as strong of a person as I've met so far. Thanks, Aldo. I really appreciate that, Bill said before snuggling up with Aldo in the end. And with that, the episode faded to black and ended. Honestly, I will admit, I wasn't exactly thinking that this episode would take as long as it did, but I guess my memory was a lot stronger than what I remembered it was. Regardless, though, this episode was very long, but it was extremely enjoyable at that. Even then, though, hopefully one day this episode will be aired, if someone happens to reboot the show. And if anything, I'm going to do my own part in trying to look for that laptop again. If I can find it, if I can find that episode, I'm going to rewatch it again, and if possible, post a couple of screenshots of it. Who's to say? Maybe it might inspire someone from Cartoon Network or the like to open the episode up again. Maybe we might actually be able to watch it. But then again, it could also spell out trouble. I'm not really sure, but you know what? It's a risk that I'm definitely willing to take. No matter what.
In fear and surprise, as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horror-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.